Okay, so for tonight, I would like to start a new mini-series that we just passed Parshas Bereishis, and there's so much to do in Parshas Bereishis, and I think that the things in Parshas Bereishis are very, very fundamental and very basic, and very fascinating. And one of the things that I find to be the most fascinating is that how the sin of the tree of knowledge, the Chet Etz Hadat, how did it affect mankind for all eternity? And what is the reality that we are stuck with because of this chet? And so, not like part of it is like the curses, but like it's really deeper than that. It's really that when Adam and Eve, when they ate from the tree of knowledge, so they actually changed reality completely. And we'll talk about the different ways that like how the different Mefarshim explained like what these differences are, what changes happened. But to understand the reality that we experience, to understand the reality that we live in, so it's important to understand like what got messed up. Like there's a lot of mess ups that happened as a result of this, and by understanding how things got messed up, we can understand that like this maze that we find ourselves in. We wake up, we're born into a messed up reality. We're born into a reality which is a result of this destruction, so to speak, of the sin. And so to understand how the sin affected our reality is actually a way of understanding of what is the ideal reality that we should be aspiring to. How can we appreciate the fact that we're living in a messed up reality in order to do the best we can in this messed up reality. Okay, so I want to discuss three approaches that the different Mefarshim have, the different Jewish thinkers explain what happened, and through that we'll be able to understand the things that it says very clearly in the Torah. It says the thing that it says clearly in the Torah that changed, that reality changed as a result of this sin is, number one, death. That as a result of the sin, so death came into the world. We weren't supposed to die. There wasn't supposed to be a thing called death. It was supposed to be that we just lived, and we just at the end of life we would just go onto a better existence, and things just like some kind of like it'll eventually would just get good, but we wouldn't have to try so hard at some point. But the concept of death there wouldn't exist before the sin of the tree of knowledge. And the other thing is the thing about clothing. Okay? It says that before the sin, so that Adam and Eve, they didn't wear any clothing, and that there was no shame in that. And then the first thing that happens after sin, so the first thing is that they needed to cover up. And so that was the second result of the sin. And so to try to understand that why that was an effect, why that was a result of this like cosmic change in the world. Okay? So first of all, like what is the way in which the eating from the tree of knowledge affected us? So the first thing is, so the first approach is the approach. It's rather famous. It's an approach which is brought down in the Sefer called Nefesh HaChaim. Nefesh HaChaim is from Rav Chaim Volozhin, student of the Vilna Gaon, and so he explains that he really starts by talking about the snake, by talking about the Nachash. So who exactly is this snake? The Ramban actually notes that if all the snakes in the world used to talk and walk, so that was certainly part of the punishment. Like nowadays, snakes don't talk, right?
Right.
So if they don't talk and they used to talk, so that means that something changed in the world of snakes. So if that changed, so that means that was a punishment. That if I used to speak and now I can't speak, so that would be a punishment, right? So it would clearly be a punishment if I can't speak anymore. So from the fact that nowadays snakes can't talk, and if they used to talk, so then that would imply that he was punished, that he can't talk, and it doesn't say that he was punished that he can't talk. So in the punishments of the snake, it never says that God said that from now on you will never be able to talk. You have to be a mute for the rest of your life. It doesn't say that, so that would imply that that's not really what that he was never really talking. So what exactly? So that would imply that when it talks about the Nachash, it doesn't mean necessarily that snakes used to have the ability to talk. So the whole snake thing is sort of a metaphor for something, right? So what's it a metaphor for? So obviously it's a metaphor for the desire to sin, right? It's the desire for us. The Nachash appears in the Torah as the thing which is trying to get us to mess up. So in modern Hebrew we call that Yetzer Hara, right? So the Nachash is the Yetzer Hara. So what happened as a result of the sin? So the Nachash sort of disappeared, right? We don't have these things calling out to us that, hey, want to eat from the tree? Want to come to Tel Aviv? And so it doesn't like
snake.
right. So
Wait, so was it? So you're saying it wasn't actually a snake?
I'm not getting into that. Maybe we'll have a different class about that. Exactly what everything's metaphor. It's not the reptile, a snake that we know today. It's referring to a Yetzer Hara. It's referring to a spiritual force, which the purpose of the spiritual force is to try to get us to sin, which is what we call the Yetzer Hara. So the Nefesh HaChaim says that what happened to the snake was that the Yetzer Hara used to be something external, and as a result of the sin, so the Yetzer Hara became something internal. Okay. In other words, that in our reality today, so we have voices inside of us that want us to do stupid things, right? And these voices, we think that they're us, right? I think that when I'm in bed, I'm supposed to be getting up, and I'm supposed to be doing stuff, and I have this voice inside of me that says, come on, just stay in bed a little bit more. You want to stay in bed, right? So this voice is telling me, he's speaking to me in first person. He's saying that it's me that wants. It's like he's talking to me as me, that I am the one who actually wants to stay in bed. And so Nefesh HaChaim writes that that's not the way the world existed before the sin. That the Nachash was this external being that was talking to us from the outside, meaning that I only wanted to do good. And it was clear to me that I only wanted to do good. So how could anybody sin? If I know that I only want to do good, so why would anybody make a mistake? How did Adam and Chava, how did they actually sin? So there was this external voice telling them that, hey, I know that you think that you want to do good. You think that you don't want to sin. But like, I'm telling you, it's so much fun. Trust me. Like, look. It's like, I'll show you a video of like how much fun I have in the shuk at night. Like it's like, and you think, and you see the video and you say, that does not look fun. What is he thinking? Why on earth would he want to do such a thing? And you should have brought her in. And well, you can invite them.
Huh?
You can invite them.
Yeah, the next time.
Okay.
No, I told them like.
Good.
They say, wow.
Okay. Amazing.
Because we used to be like in the same apartment.
Yeah. Okay. Same. Good. Next time. I'm waiting.
Next time.
Okay. So you says okay. Why that doesn't look fun? Why are you smiling? So he says, I know you don't understand. It's because you're living in a cave, and you're in a very secluded environment, and it's a very you're living in a bubble, and you don't get it. But like I'm telling you, this is so much fun. This is real pleasure. Is if you come join my guys, come do my stuff. And so when you're hearing him talking like this, so you don't really know what he's talking about, right? Because you know that you actually enjoy just doing good things. And when he starts telling you about how enjoyable the life of sin is, so you don't really get it. So what's the only thing that could actually get you to mess up? It's only one thing. That is curiosity. It's only so the concept of sin before the sin, the concept of making a mistake before Adam and Chava actually sinned, the source of sin was only from curiosity. It's only from just like, who knows, maybe there's other stuff, and that's like he messed up with that. It's very interesting when I teach the story of the Lost Princess, and from Rabbi Nachman. So he, at the beginning of the story, he talks about that there was a guy that was trying to rescue the princess, and he has two mistakes. He has two failures, and the first failure is about physical pleasure, and the second failure is about curiosity. That there's something just like interesting. It doesn't really attract me. It's just like, whoa, that's so weird. That's so unique. It's like, I gotta figure this out. I gotta watch this. And like I always say that like the modern day Yetzer Hara of curiosity is in our phones. Is in our phones, and all of the different platforms. We need to be aware of the fact that YouTube is paying billions or trillions of dollars to the brightest minds in the world, that their entire mission is to get us glued to our phone 24/7. That is their dream. They are trying to, and the way they do it is they know how to perk our interest. They know to get our, and nobody thinks that like, oh yeah, that looks fun to watch movies for 3 hours straight. That looks like you look like you're enjoying life. Nobody thinks like that. It's just, but they get us. And it's through this curiosity. So that was the entire sin before the Chet Etzadas. The entire concept of sin was specifically through curiosity. Okay. Now, after the sin, so things changed drastically. And now that we have the sin, so now it's not just like something maybe that I actually think that's what I want. Okay, meaning we have this the snake inside of us is telling us that this is what I want. Okay, and so this is what makes a lot of confusion in life. This is what makes us really difficult to make good decisions, because we have these conflicting voices inside of us. That part of us wants to go to a shir, and the other part of us wants to go to the beach. And the other, like we have these conflicting messages, and we both think like, oh, well, I want this and I want that, and so like sometimes like usually there is a good litmus test. Usually the way to figure it out, like which is the real me, is how do I feel afterwards. That when we make a bad decision, so we feel like a loser. And when we make a right decision, then we feel proud of ourselves. We feel good with ourselves. So usually that's a good way to understand. Usually that's a good way to, but sometimes it's even that. Sometimes we could do something stupid and we actually feel good about it. And like it's really a confusion. And I once heard a metaphor from a rabbi. His name is Rebecca of Addis. I've mentioned him before. He's a very interesting character, and so he said this. He said like a metaphor about like two countries which are having a war against each other, and so then one of the countries they had like a secret weapon. They had this amazing general, and like he was the mastermind behind all the successes, and so the enemy, they had this crazy idea to drug him and kidnap him and bring him to the other side, and like he'll wake up and he'll think that he's just continuing fighting, and he'll never realize that he actually switched sides. And so he wakes up and he just knows like kill the other guys, and he doesn't chap that he switched, that he, like in his sleep he had switched sides, and now he's really fighting against himself, and he's really fighting against his brothers and sisters, so that's like that. Sometimes we associate with the part of us which isn't the real us. But sometimes like there's this part of us which is actually our greatest enemy, and that's this snake that used to not be part of us at all until it became he started just being an uninvited guest, started just what's it called when you just like sit somewhere and intruder, yeah.
Impose.
Squatter.
Yeah.
Squatter, that. And so he's like a parasite, just like living in us, and like he's actually our greatest enemy. He actually wants us to fail. He actually wants us to die, but he kidnaps us and tells us that it's us, that he is us. Like everything that he says, it's really what we want. And so just to have this epiphany, that to wake up and see and understand that, hey, that somebody is actually, it's like a cyber attack. It's like that there's somebody is messing with my hardware of my brain, and giving me messages telling me that it's me, and it's actually not me. It's like these people like everybody, like my account was hacked. If somebody asks you for money, please please do not give them. Our account was hacked, and people were getting these messages that I want, like sometimes you want money, but sometimes you want food, sometimes you want parties, sometimes you want just waste time, sometimes you want just do stupid things, and like somebody is, in the name of me, they're asking for these things, and I say, oh, it's you, I have to be self-care, I have to be nice to myself, but no, it's actually not me. It's actually, not only is it not me, but it's actually my greatest enemy. It's even worse, like it's one thing if just if the hacker is just some random guy from India, right? But if it's if the hacker is your greatest enemy, the guy that you actually to imagine that somebody is giving money to your greatest enemy because they think they're giving money to you. They're how are you gonna feel? That's disgusting. It's how could you do that? And so you can't blame them because they didn't know better, because they thought it was you, right? Mm-hmm. But this is all of the curse that's coming from the sin. That as a result of this curse, so there's this confusion that we get these messages and we think it's us, and it's really coming from the other side. Okay? So that's the first thing. That's the first result, the first consequence of the sin of the tree of knowledge, and that is the nefesh hachaim. Okay? The next approach that I want to discuss is the approach of the Rambam. Okay, the Rambam discusses this in Mar Nevuchim, in the Guide to the Perplexed, and he starts with a question that at first glance, so the concept of the Eitz Hadas, it seems very counterintuitive. That it says that when you eat from the tree, that you're not allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge, because when you eat from the tree of knowledge, so then v'yisim kelokim, you'll be like God, yodei tavra, to know the difference between good and evil. So that sounds like a good thing. I would like to be like God. I would like to know the difference between good and evil. It sounds like we want to be godly. We want to have understanding. Everybody wants understanding. Everybody wants das. We daven for das, and so how could it be that Hashem was prohibiting us from something good? Yeah, that's his question. So he explains as follows. And there's different ways of understanding this. This is the way that the way that I'm telling you now is the way that I heard many years ago from a Rav named Rav Mendel Balachman. He's a Rebbe in Kirbi Avna, and so I think he heard this from Rav Hutner, but I'm not sure. That the Rambam says that what's clear in the Rambam is that before the sin, so we didn't live life with the factors of tov and ra, but rather we lived life with factors of emet and sheker. Okay? That before the sin, so the way that I looked at all the different issues in life, my different decisions I need to make. So my considerations were all considerations of emet and sheker, of true and false. Is this something objectively good? Is this something objectively bad? And so if something that to do something which is worthwhile objectively, that's emet. To do something which is objectively a waste of time, so that's sheker. That's like it's a lie. It's not real. Like to live a life of nothingness, to live a life of meaninglessness, to live a life of sin is a sheker. You're living a life of sheker. You're like not just because you're not living up to what you were meant to be, but because your whole existence is actually meaningless. You're a bluff. You're like, it looks like you're walking around and like you're actually not a human being. You're actually a figment of imagination. You're like a chicken walking around with that head. It's like your entire life is not real, and because the true reality is only when you're connected to truth. And like a person that's going to live to be oblivious to reality, so they're living a life of lies. Okay, so the way that mankind looked at decision making before the sin was with the perspective of emet and sheker. That is this something which is real, or is this something which is fake? And that's how they made the decisions. That's like, if you are emet, then I like you. If you're sheker, I don't like you. And so then as opposed to after he ate from the tree of knowledge, then everything in his decision-making process changed to tov and ra. What does tov and ra mean? So tov and ra means that, is it good for me, or is it bad for me? So is this going to help me, or is this going to be detrimental to me? And so what changed? What changed? That instead of living as an objective part of reality, so now I changed from an object to a subject. Okay, now it's all about me. Okay, and he pointed out that this is such a fascinating depth in what the pasuk means. V'yisem kelokim, you'll be like God. That before the sin, so who was the one that decided the value of something? God. The definition of truth is something that has objective godly value, and the definition of false is something that doesn't have this objective godly value. So God is the barometer of if something has value or not. And so now after the sin, so now what's the barometer as to whether or not something has value? Me. If it helps me, then I like it. If it doesn't help me, then I don't like it. And so it's such a harsh way of saying it, that you became God. You became God. That we took the place of God, because the way things were supposed to be is that God is the one giving definitions to things, is that how something is in sync with God's values, that's what gives things value. And instead, if it helps me, that's what's giving things value. So now I've become God. So basically, in a nutshell, the way the Rambam just explains the ramifications of the sin is that I became egocentric. That the world became egocentric. That everything goes around us, and this plays itself out in many things, like that. Simply, like we spoke about on Sunday, we're talking about like just our lack of ability to care for other people, lack of ability to share, lack of ability to love, lack of ability to care, and so that's that, and it's like, but it even comes to more serious things, that not that those things are not serious, but that I could actually define things which are objectively good, and because I don't care about the world, so like, why should I care that you're doing a good thing? How's that affect me? How does that? What, like, so what that you're helping the homeless? Like, I'm not homeless. Why should I support you? It's it's like it's so a way of looking at, there's a I once had a discussion with somebody about voting, like voting like in Israel specifically, not in America, that like you have different parties, and you have some parties that are very community specific. You have a party for the Chavidim, you have a party for the people, old people. You have a party for the ecology people, and so the question is that what's the most important thing? Like if you're a person like who's in pension, or like an old person like you, the only people fighting for you is only this party that's for the pensionarium, we call them in Hebrew, and how do you call it in English? Retirees. Right? So it happens to be that these what should be my motivation in voting? Should my motivation in voting be what's better for the state of Israel, or should my motivation in voting be what's better for me? So I think that this is such a no-brainer. That's exactly the difference between before the sin and after the sin. That like before the sin, so we looked at things objectively, what's actually better for mankind, what's actually better for the Jewish people, and as a result of the sin, so now I just care about me. Like, and this is precisely a symptom of this sickness of egocentricity, and so this is like it's a sickness. It's a sickness that we're programmed to only care about ourselves and what is going to serve me, and that's how I look at life. I look at life based on how much it serves me. Things that make my life better, those are the things that I like. The things that aren't so good for my life, I remember I was walking with my kids, and we took this tour. I don't know. We took something in the old city. Maybe it was the what they call the Ramparts walk, on the wall around the old city, and maybe it was like we went to the tour. We went into the Christian Quarter, and like we're walking back, and it was like there's Arabs everywhere, and so but Baruch Hashem, there was also police people everywhere. So my kids, for the first time, they said, "Wow, like I'm so happy for the police." Like it was the first time in their life that they looked at the police people as good people. Like until now, they were always the bad guys. It was always like oh no, the police are gonna see us not wearing a mask, and that the police are gonna catch us that we're parked illegally, and and it was all like the police is always the ones that are out to get you, and that's coming from obviously a very egocentric mentality, but if you think about the betterment of mankind, so of course the police are there to help you, and it's because in general it's actually better, the people follow laws, and etc. Okay, so this is a certain sickness that we have, that we're poisoned by the tree of knowledge to be egocentric and to rate things, to give value to things based on how they affect us, as opposed to their objective value. Okay, and last but not least, so that's the Rambam. That's the Rambam. The first approach was the Nefesh HaChaim, that what changed through the sin was that our evil inclination, as opposed to being something external, became part of us, that we think it's us. Number two, that our whole decision-making process changed from something which is objective to something which is subjective. It's all about me. I became God. And the third is the approach of the Ramchal, that the Ramchal writes that the biggest change that happened as a result of the sin was that we became very materialistic. And this is something which appears also in the writings of the Ramban, that our connection to materialism and physicality changed. He writes so far as to say that before the sin, our bodies weren't physical the way we have them. Like we didn't have skin the way that we have skin now. I'm not sure exactly how this how this works exactly with all the different midrashim, but he explains that the concept of bodies, the body of Adam and Eve, was similar to the body of Eliyahu after he went up to heaven. That like it's no longer has atoms. He no longer has like something. It's less spiritual than a soul, but more spiritual than skin, than flesh and bones. And so that was it was so just like we have neshama, and then we have a deeper level of neshama. So like our body wasn't a body as we know it. Our body was something less spiritual than our soul, and that's why it was called a body, right? And then as a result of the sin, so we got midi. We got I had a friend of mine that lives in Beit Shemesh. She has this podcast called "Let's Get Fleischiks." So he explained once that this name "Let's Get Fleischiks." So he had two things in mind. First of all, that there's a certain phobia that religious people develop, that they never want to eat anything fleishik, because what if I want to have coffee or ice cream or pizza sometime in the next 6 hours, so then I'm going to be messed over. Okay, so the first thing was just like seize the moment. There is no tomorrow. Let's just live like there is nothing in 5 hours, and there is nothing beside this moment. That's one. But the second thing was like this image of a person with like a huge like meat sandwich, just like completely like just making his entire face dirty with all the fatty sauce and like just everything everywhere, and just like getting really fleishik is like being completely like engrossed in your sandwich. And so that was like so that's not a way to live life, is like to be just completely engrossed in everything you're doing. Okay, so that's that metaphor that only existed after the sin. Okay, before the sin there was no getting fleischiks. There was no, everything was very proper, very milchiks, yes. And parv. You say parv, yeah. Not even milchiks. Yeah. So this is the second thing that changed drastically as a result of the sin. So now this makes a lot of sense. You know, that makes like that part of that we were more connected to our souls before, and because of the sin, we became less connected to our soul, more connected to our body. Meaning there was more of a dissonance between the different parts of our existence, and so because of this greater dissonance, so there's more of a spectrum. So by nature, we're further away from our soul. We're further away from our spiritual existence. So that's why it's like the distance between our body and our soul before the sin and after the sin is drastic. So like before, even if you were into your body, so you were like a half a centimeter away from being by your soul. So like you're always on the same page. Whereas now, when you're into your body, you're continents away from your soul. So like it's more distant, the whole world of spirituality, when you're into your body. So this is the third approach as to what's changed drastically as a result of the sin. So now how does this play out in what we see in the Psukim? So the first thing that we find is that death came into the world. Death came into the world as a result of the sin. So we said before that means that before people weren't supposed to die. Okay. Now there's a question everybody asks, that Hashem says that ki v'yom hachacham menu ma'is tamos, that on the day that you eat from the tree you're going to die, and so everybody asks, like, hey, he didn't die on the day that he ate. He lived another 930 years, right? So there's those that like they explain that like a day of Hashem is 1,000 years for us, but I always explain that it's a mistake, that it's a misunderstanding, that before the sin, man wasn't supposed to die. You're supposed to live forever. So on the day that he ate from the tree, he became he became, what's the word?
Mortal.
Yeah. That he became a person who was going to die. So that happened. That on the very day that he ate, he became a person who was going to die. That it was decreed on him that mot tamut, that you're going to die. So as a result of the sin, so what happened? It was decreed upon us that we're going to have to die. Now, what happens after we die? What happens after we die? There's a lot that happens after we die. But at the end of the story, so we come back to life, right? That's called reincarnation. That's no resurrection. Reincarnation is something else. That's the middle. Reincarnation is the middle. At the end, that's also right. But at the end of the story, is something called resurrection. After you reincarnate the last time, you also die. And then after you die the last time, then it's resurrection. Okay, that's called Tchiyat HaMetim. Okay, this is it's one of the 13 principles of faith. It's the 13th of the Ikari Emunah, is to believe in Tchiyas HaMesim. So now, Tchiyas HaMesim is that our bodies come back, and then we live forever. Then we live forever. Okay, so what changed? How come the first time we die, and the second time we live forever? So the difference is that the body is matter. The body is physical. So physical is finite. So anything finite it can't live forever, just because it's finite. And there's nothing physical that can last forever, right? So the only way that something physical can last forever is only if it hatches on to something infinite, to something spiritual. Okay? So now how could the physical merge with the spiritual? Only if it has the right DNA, if it has what it takes to connect. So before the sin, our body was, even though it was finite, but it was so perfect that it could merge with the spiritual. By merging with spiritual, so it could thereby live forever. So what happened? As a result of the sins, what happened is that our body became a little bit less compatible with our soul. So the compatibility wasn't perfect. So we could stay together for a couple of years, but we can't stay together forever, because at the end of the day, our soul is infinite and pure, and our body is messed up. So there's only so long that our bodies and our souls can stay together. And so when our bodies and our soul can't stay together anymore, that's called death. Okay? So now what happens? What happens when we die? So the Ramchal explains that really, it's really in the Gemara, but that when we die, so then something gets fixed in our bodies. That our body, that through the decaying and all the stuff that it goes through in the grave, so that fixes it of the problems that happened as a result of the sin of the tree of knowledge. So what happens basically is that the body becomes compatible with the soul. Okay? And that's how Tchiyas HaMesim works. That's why after it comes back, that's why we're able to live. That's why that's how we're able to live forever. So now in the physical reality that we have right now, because we're still alive, so what changed is that our body is a little bit, because of what the Ramchal explains, that our body is less spiritual than it used to be, so it becomes incompatible with the soul. and so the truth is that this is really starts from very very early. Like we don't only start dying when we get some terminal illness. That the truth is that from the very beginning we start to die, because from the very beginning our body is not completely compatible with the soul, and therefore it starts decaying. And there's an interesting thing that we find, that the children they don't have any body odor. Now the body odor, it comes from a certain decay in the hormones. We give out some kind of, it's the reason why it's a bad smell. The reason why it smells bad is because it's not a good thing. It's something toxic, or something. It's a sort of decay of the body, and so babies they have no smell because they're just pure, and they're not yet connected. Like their body hasn't yet developed to be something which is incompatible with the soul. So at that point, they're actually completely pure, and they have no connection to death. And it's only because the baby matures that he becomes connected to the world of sin, becomes the world of materialism, becomes that as they become more of a person after the sin, that's what brings death into their into their existence. I read this crazy story that there was the first Rebbe of Talmud Zayin, Rebbe Arler. The like Talmud Zayin is like the ones that wear like the striped things in Me'ashayin. So the Talmud Zayin is named after Aaron. Like this. So the Aaron was Rebbe Arler. Rebbe Arler wrote. So his Gabbai said a very crazy story about him, that he would wear the same undergarments for an entire week, and there was a crazy thing that there was no smell. That his clothing had no smell. And the only way that he understood this was that Rebbe Arler was so holy that he was no way connected to the world of lust and the world of the egocentricity and he was so holy that he was on the same spiritual level as a baby, and that's why there was like the concept of body odor didn't exist, and that's why of course all of Hasidim. So that's just kidding. So this is the death. The death that came into the world. So why is death a result of the sin of the tree of knowledge? Very simple. Because the way that Ramchal explains that our whole existence became more physical. So because it became more physical, it became less mergeable with our soul. Meaning that that before the sin, so our whole existence was very much aligned, and now, as a result of the sin, so now we are not aligned. That we have this dissonance within ourselves. That our body and our soul, they aren't really, really happy with the same things. That they're actually, in a certain sense, they're looking for different kinds of experiences in life. Okay, and the last point, we'll see if the battery will let us conclude. Will let us say the end. But the last point that the Torah tells us about the result of the tree of knowledge is regarding clothing. Okay, that before the sin, so that Adam and Eve were walking around without clothing, and there was no shame. So, and then the first thing is that when they ate, so then they covered alei teina. They took a fig leaf, and that's how they covered themselves. So. So now, why this is the concept of modesty. Okay, the concept of modesty was a result of the sin. That before the sin, so then there was nothing immodest about being undressed, and after the sin, so there was a certain immodesty. Now, so why is it immodest to walk around without clothing? It's obviously connected to sexuality. Okay? That there's something immodest about sexuality. Okay? And there's something very like there's something that a healthy person is modest about their sexuality. That I want to, the part of me which is connected to my sexuality, that's something that I keep that to myself. I don't want to present my sexuality to the world. There's something by the way, there's something like very messed up in secular culture in general, that there's, but it's specifically connected to the Pride parades, but in general, so there's been a change in the way that people dress, that it's a trend to promote your sexuality to the world. That I'm not just dressing this way because I think it looks nice. I'm dressing this way because I want to present myself in my sexuality to the world, and that's something very unhealthy. It's not the way we were created. It's a sickness, and we see this we see this very clearly in the Pride parades. That like I never really got this. Like the Pride parades is about like LGBT. Like they want to be accepted. They don't want to have to be shamed in the fact that they have certain orientations, and like I get that. Like Pseudo, like I'm Jewish, so like I believe that like that you shouldn't be homosexual. But like I get it. Like I get it. Like but I never understood like what does that have to do with walking around naked? Like what Ma'akesher? So until I realized that it's not just like don't have shame. It's that be proud, and part of and that's what's so messed up about it is that like why do you like I that it's one thing to not have to be ashamed, but it's another thing to be proud, to just define me. I want to be in your face as my sexual orientation. They're like, what the heck? Why don't you keep that to yourself? Why should that be like the first thing that I mention when I introduce myself to you is something about my sexuality that's so counterintuitive, that's against the way we are created, that my sexuality is something that needs to be covered. So the truth is that so maybe really deep down what they're thinking is that they want to revert back to the way that Adam and Eve were before the sin, because that's actually so now. But the question is that what changed as a result of the sin? How come sexuality wasn't a source of shame before the sin, and after the sin it became a source of shame? So the answer to this is actually something. It's actually very connected to two of the things that we discussed. That first of all, obviously it's connected to the world of sensuality, about the Ramchal, about becoming more physical, but it's also about the Rambam, that before the sin everything was objective, and after the sin everything is subjective. And the thing is that the way that mankind related to sexuality before the sin was objective, meaning that it's just a way of bringing children into the world. It's just a way of making life. It's a beautiful thing. That's something objective. That's something beautiful. That's something holy. Now, after the sins, so that was no longer the motivation, but rather it was an act of taking. It was an act of selfishness. And the reason why we are the healthy, normal people know that my sexuality is something which I keep to myself is because we know that it's naturally something which is an act of taking, which is something about it's a selfish thing, and like it's okay, we're human. We're humans stuck in this reality after the sin, but it's not something to be proud of that you have this part of you which is about taking. So this is actually how the world of sexuality changed as a result of the sin. And that's why it became something which is something to be ashamed for, like in a good way, right? So this is why these two things, the death and modesty, so that's why they were the two things which were affected by this sin. So really, because the entire existence changed. So this is something that we need to keep in mind, that as we live our lives, we need to know that we're at a disadvantage, that we're starting with a handicap, that we're way more